Right now on KGW News, the hillside that's threatening homes.
It was like my worst nightmare, pretty much.
And it isn't over tonight with the road buckling and foundations still moving. Also tonight, new glimpses of storm damage so severe some might be out of their homes for months.
We are literally just trying to keep afloat, keep the kids in their schools.
And treatment instead of tickets.
We're trying to kind of break that cycle now.
Why an effort from Portland police to connect drug users with help has so far only lasted a few days. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Mulco. First at 11, it's been some 2 weeks now since a winter storm brought down trees all over the area and knocked out power to 500,000 people. And while many are thankful to put it all behind them, others will be quite literally digging through the fallout for weeks, maybe even months to come. That includes school districts, businesses, nonprofits, homeowners, and renters. Tonight, we're taking a look at what many are still dealing with, starting with our Catherine Cook, who asked about tenants' rights for homes that sustained damage.
We might not own it, but this was our home.
A home Allison Neighbor and her family can now only dream of returning to since a tree crashed through their roof.
I'll just take you to where like the worst of it is.
That would be the master bedroom,
where the tree is literally resting in the side of the wall.
It happened January 13th at 177th and Pacific in Gresham. Allison, her fiance, and their 2 kids were all home when they heard the crash and ran.
And where do you run when a tree is coming at you? You really don't know. You just run and hope you're not going to die.
That was 2 weeks ago.
Now they've topped it, but I mean, as y'all saw, it's still in the bedroom.
They've been staying in a hotel and an Airbnb, which their renter's insurance is covering. But there are still costs, including lost work, to deal with all of this.
Everybody talks about that rainy day fund, but what you think is enough is not enough.
There's also water damage now. The couple says that's due to slow service by the contractor that the homeowner hired. The property management company tells KGW they aren't charging the tenants rent while the house is uninhabitable. The renters here say at times in the process, they've felt caught in the middle.
I don't know how a property company can let their tenants have to deal with the homeowner insurance, the tree people, like all of it. I don't understand any of it.
You need to know your rights.
Margot Black is a tenants' rights advocate. She says the #1 rule for renters dealing with an uninhabitable home:
do not voluntarily terminate their tenancy. Do not take an offer from your landlord to, get out of your lease early or move without penalty. That is your landlord trying to get out of their obligation to provide you safe and habitable housing with essential services.
Also, Black says it's critical to communicate with your landlord.
Really try to insist to keep things in writing, take pictures, keep receipts. You may, in several cases, be able to withhold rent either to pay for a hotel or to pay for repairs that your landlord's not doing it, but never do that without getting the advice of an attorney.
Back in Gresham.
And we are literally just trying to keep afloat, keep the kids in their schools, keep them stable.
It's not easy dealing with loss, so they focus on what they have.
While this is tragic, we have our lives.
Allison's family is looking for a new place to stay in. Their Airbnb rental ends this week. Their biggest concern is keeping their kids within their school's boundaries, but right now they're having a tough time finding any short-term rentals that meet that need. David?
Taking it one day at a time. Catherine Cook in the newsroom. Thank you, Catherine. You know what? We know Allison and her family are not alone when it comes to dealing with all this damage. Hundreds of trees came down on houses and apartments. The city of Portland says it is still gathering data to add up the total cost of repairs. And in Lake Oswego, where some neighborhoods suffered considerable damage, we return to see cleanup continuing.
It looked like a tornado went down this street, quite honestly.
All of the floor had to be taken out. It's been really hard. It's been really humbling.
Well, that was the director of the Selwood Community House, which has been a staple in Southeast Portland for decades. Their pipes burst in the Arctic blast, damaging the ceilings, the walls, and floors. They think it'll be months before it's back and open to neighbors. Meanwhile, in Astoria, homes are still moving after a mudslide on Saturday. We went to check on the area today. It looked like things had actually gotten worse. So the city's red tagged homes with do not occupy signs. We noticed parts of the street were also buckling. Neighbors tell us they've seen more mud and water flowing down the hill, with homes now shifting off their foundations. Here's the deputy fire chief.
We have seen some signs of land movement on sidewalks and some like retaining walls. So there's definitely some, it doesn't look the same as it did when we were out here Saturday afternoon.
It was like my worst nightmare, pretty much. I've been worried about the possibility of this happening for a long time.
That is Scott Ames, who has lived on this block for 20 years. Those closest to the slide now have left their homes and are being escorted into the risk area to pick up belongings. Developing tonight, 3 people were sent to the hospital after a shooting outside of Salem. Fred Meyer. The injured include a man and a woman in her 30s and another man in his late 20s. A witness said he saw a woman and 2 men fighting outside of a car around 7:30 this morning, then heard the gunshots. Police so far have not released any information on the suspect. Fred Meyer near I-5 and Market Street Northeast remained open today, though part of the lot was blocked off for the investigation. Tonight, police in 3 different cities are investigating deadly hit and runs. The first was in Happy Valley late Saturday night. A man was hit and killed on I-205 South just before the Sunnyside exit. Police are only saying it was a black vehicle that struck him and then took off. Then there was a second crash in Vancouver just before 7 Sunday evening at Northeast 4th Plain and 137th. Police say a 67-year-old man was not in a crosswalk and he was hit by a pickup. The driver who hit him stopped, but police say a second driver who tried to get around the backup swerved, ran over the man, and then took off. The only vehicle description in this case, a dark-colored sedan. Then an eerily similar situation in Gresham early this morning. I know, 3 now, right? A person was struck by 2 vehicles in that case while trying to cross East Burnside at North Main around 3:30. Both drivers left the scene. All right, there is more. Just as we were coming on the air tonight, we learned of yet another hit and run, though in this case, the victim survived. Sheriff's deputies say a teenage driver was on the westbound shoulder of I-84 near Corbett this evening, changing a tire when a passing vehicle hit him and kept going. They describe his injuries as fairly serious. The westbound lanes of I-84 are closed right now for that response. We are following up tonight on Portland's first responders who've been trying a new strategy for the past month when it comes to combating the addiction crisis downtown. Though, as Blair Best found out, it turns out the lack of treatment is already making it hard for the program to grow.
There's a deadly crisis on Portland streets, and it's always on the move.
When you're out here, it's not easy.
The latest spot for drug use, Southwest Park Avenue and Columbia Street, right across from Safeway.
I mean, it could be the grocery store, a lot of stealing going on, and people are getting daily household needs and trading for drugs.
I'd say it's pretty severe.
As Dennis points out, one doesn't have to look far to see how the aftermath of addiction has taken over the sidewalks there.
There's a syringe right there on the ground. I mean, if you walk around this corner and walk around this block, you'll see 20, 30 different people that are, using drugs or trying to cop drugs.
We need help out here. You know what I mean? We need help.
Last month, Portland police launched a new approach to addiction by connecting drug users with outreach workers.
We're trying to kind of break that cycle now by just starting to, introduce people to service providers who can come out on the street that moment and hopefully make those connections that, convince people to go into recovery.
They've done this a total of 4 days. They have data from the first 3. In that time, police and outreach workers connected with 100 drug users. 25 wanted detox, 18 wanted treatment, and they're not currently tracking how many of them made it through those programs.
It's an exciting early stage of a pilot project. And we are intentionally going slow, not because the need isn't great, but because we need to make sure that we're actually able to help people.
There needs to be more treatment centers. There needs to be more recovery housing, support groups.
There is a line that you cross when you are an outreach worker asking people if they need help and then not being able to give it to them.
Portland police officers are not alone here. Other first responders, like those at Portland Fire and Rescue, are also taking new approaches at how to attack this deadly crisis.
And we see firsthand the significant challenges that our city is facing.
When responding to an overdose, Portland Fire can now give medication to help ease withdrawal symptoms. And if the person is willing, connect them to long-term recovery services.
We are uniquely suited to provide this alternative solution to the tragic opioid and addiction crisis.
I think it's actually a really good idea rather than just arresting people.
Well, you heard, since services remain limited, though, police are handing out citations and fines much more often than they're connecting somebody with outreach. Meanwhile, outreach workers are calling on the state to prioritize addiction resources during this year's legislative session. That starts next week. You're watching KGW News. Straight ahead at 11, could this image be the key to solving a 90-year-old mystery? The missing plane some underwater explorers think they've now found. And tax day will be here before you know it. So as you start to think about doing yours, our Verify team asks, is there really such a thing as filing for free?
David, believe it or not, we saw many locations with temperatures right around 70 degrees, record-breaking temperatures in a few locations. Not that warm in the metro area, but still very mild. Over in Tillamook, you saw 70 degrees today. And coming up in the detailed forecast, I'll talk more about the changes that are on the way and let you know if we could be seeing more widespread 70-degree weather heading into Tuesday afternoon.